Jeff Goldblum recently proudly stated that he is not going to leave a penny of his $40 million net worth to either of his children. And we've actually seen similar statements from Gordon Ramsay, from Jackie Chan, and other celebrities too. They seem to be proud of the fact that they're not giving any of their money to their kids.
This is like, I see a lot of discourse on Twitter about like the evils of boomers and the stupidity of boomers. I tend to be one of those people most of the time when people complain about boomers. I say, yes, you're right. What are you going to do about it? Because it just always seems like whining to me. Mm-hmm. But in this case, we have a very specific example in which we can draw from. And I asked the question in the poll today, ladies and gentlemen. I said, should those of wealth leave their money to their children? Right now, we have 81% saying that you should.
Guys, if you said no, I do want to hear your explanation as to why. But it should be mentioned, Jeff Goldblum is a boomer. He is 71 years old, but his children are still very young. He says that his children, Charlie, 8 years old, and River, 6, will have to support themselves when they get older. Hey, you know, you've got to row your own boat. It's an important thing to teach kids. I'm not going to do it for you, and you're not going to want me to do it for you. You've got to figure out how to find what's wanted and needed and where that intersects with your love and passion and what you can do. And even if it doesn't, you might have to do that anyway.
Look, there's good sentiment that doesn't extend entirely to practice here, meaning that instilling good values, good work ethic, strong morals in your kids is a good thing. But
I don't think giving your kids money necessarily does anything for them. It just gives them an opportunity to do more for themselves.
It's kind of like, it's kind of like
within the family.
Shaq saying like he's not going to give his kids don't get any of his wealth unless they get 2 college degrees. Mm-hmm. That's something that only a rich person would say because
or someone who's totally out of touch with the state of education. Those college degrees won't
bring them money anyways most of the time because they're going to get art history degrees. So it's not all it's proving is that they can take orders, mm-hmm. right? But instilling good values in your kids isn't a bad thing. But there is this boomer take from a previous generation where it's pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, his kids, depending on how out of touch he is, it's kind of like when they go to Bill Gates and they're like, how much does a gallon of milk cost? And then these kids don't receive anything from him and they gotta live just like the rest of us. Fine, sure. But is that what a parent's supposed to do?
I think that, didn't Chet Hanks say that he hasn't gotten any money from his parents?
Yeah. I mean, I was like whenever I see stuff like that, I'm like, did they buy your apartment?
But also
I don't know.
An inheritance is totally different because that's after you've passed on. And hopefully your children have already had their own children and they're building a life. So it's different than just doling out a monthly check to your 26-year-old adult child.
And my issue with this is actually a lot simpler. So Jeff Goldblum, you said he's how old? He's 72?
71.
So he's 71 years old. He's worth, according to the internet, he's worth $40 million. He's still working regularly. Mm-hmm. The money's not going to his kids. What is he working for other than to make himself more money? You're sacrificing time with your children that many parents would kill to have to be able to spend unlimited time with their kids to continue working. All for money that's not going to help your family in the end anyways. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me.
It makes you look like a jerk.
Yeah, if it's not going to your kids, then your wealth is going to go to your wife, first of all, who's 30 years younger than him, and then probably to either government assets or NGOs. And they're not going to use your money any better than your kids could have. Yeah. It would be one thing if like
that is actually offensive and disgusting. Yeah. The idea that you would give your money to faceless, disgusting bureaucrats or NGOs or charities that dole out 60-70% of it to freaking executives is pathetic, and you should be embarrassed with yourself. I don't care how much research you did.
It's weird because at 71, he's the age that a lot of people in the past would have been grandparents or even great-grandparents, maybe just a century ago. But he has an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. That was like shocking to me. And it's because he got married in 2014 when his wife was 31, and I'm just picturing her pestering him every day. When are we gonna have kids? When are we gonna have kids?
Yeah.
And finally he relents, and now she's 41 with these young children. It would be different maybe if he had adult children who are, say, 28 and 26, and they're acting like spoiled brats and crashing cars and doing drugs. And then maybe you could reassess at that point.
Yeah.
But this is much different. This seems to be part of his fundamental values.
Right. These kids that he also had very late in life and aren't going to get to grow up with their father.
Also,
Yeah.
I do want to kind of push back and pull back to what I said. Like, I don't know where his money is going, but I have to assume that he's not leaving it to his kids, that it's going to go to charities.
If it's not left to charities, it will be seized by the government.
Yeah, there'll be just capital gains tax, and then there'll be the wealth tax and all this stuff, and your money will be taxed and taxed and taxed, so that the government can send a bunch of money overseas that nobody in this country will ever see a dime of, and you will see that as virtuous, which is even more pathetic.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's just a general problem with the boomer generation. I know we crap on Gen Z more on this show than the boomer generation, actually. So they deserve a little bit of flack too. There's actually a problem with them that gets talked about a lot among millennial parents. They don't even want to be involved in their grandchildren's lives. They don't want to take care of their grandchildren. They don't want to live near their grandchildren. And that goes for all socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
They tend to act like that. And
do you think it's a product
gross.
of just like, okay, so we live in a country where it's like you're kicked out of the house at 18, go, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, take out $8 gazillion in student loans that you're never going to be able to pay back so that you can make your way in the world. And there's a disconnect from family there. That made sense, a little bit of sense back in the day when college was cheaper, life was different, and
rent was cheaper.
The concept of family was less diluted than it is now. And now what once was making your way in the world has given way to resentment. And you wonder why kids today are angry. Now, again, most of the time when I hear kids say that, I just scoff and say, you're complaining, but you're like, I'm just one of those people. Like, other than when we're doing this show, I'm like, I'm not going to complain about something that, unless there's a fix, I don't get the point. But I get it, but I just don't know if it's necessarily always worth the time that we put into it. But I understand. And that take from the boomers is just really, really sad. It shows that he's disconnected from just what the world is now.
Yeah, it's really kind of rotten to not care about the legacy that you leave in the world and only about yourself.
Yeah.
But that's common among celebrities.
Right, because is he just going to try to spend it all as quickly as possible before the day comes?
Yeah, is that the goal? Because there's no way. I mean, and then you brought up, why are you even working then? Yeah. For in this case, you're still working. You're still doing commercials. You're doing movies. Why are you even working? Because if it's true that he has a net worth of $40 million, he could happily retire now and have more money than he knows what to do with, or that his wife knows what to do with. So he's really just working for his own personal glory and no other reason.
I mean, there's something to be said about just like you don't want to sit still, you want to keep working, but then don't have the kids.
Or do it
you
for
have
free.
an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. They need time.
Yeah.
What about their college fund? I mean, it's like
he's literally gonna die when they're in their 20s.
And that stuff's not mentioned. I'm sure these kids will have. I'm sure these kids. That's the other thing. There could be trust set up for housing. There could be trust set up for colleges. I assume when I read these stories, I assume that their college is paid for. They're going to have homes. They're going to have all these things. But it just seems like such disdain to just be like, oh, do it yourself. Well, how about you help them do it themselves before then? It's going to be harder because you're going to be 90 when they're old enough to start careers.
If he makes it that far.
Yeah.
But he could, I mean, he's 71 now. He could die when they're still teenagers, when they're not even adults yet.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing is just kind of broken. But yeah, I don't understand being smug about it. If that's your choice, that's your choice. But why are you bragging about it?
The thing is, it's always couched in language that makes sense. I'm not going to do it for you, and you're not going to want me to do it for you. There's logic there. there is at least a semblance of logic there, meaning that accomplishing something on your own will always stick better. Meaning that if you go out in the world, you go to college, whatever, you get an MBA, you get into the executive class, and you work your way up through a Fortune 500 company, and you do it without your dad saying, like, put this person in your, like, hire this person. Yes, that will work. Or you go and maybe they go and do a trade and they start building their own world that way. Like, is the idea here that your kids go to school, maybe one of them doesn't want to be an executive or an actor. Maybe he wants to be an electrician. And he goes and he gets a blue-collar job and he can provide for his family, but it's not going to be the life that he was raised in. The chances of that are minimal, but are you going to then cut him out of an inheritance because what? He made something of himself. He got a job. He's providing for his family. All you're doing is punishing him at that point. He's proven to you that he has the skills that he needs to pull himself up by the bootstraps. All you're doing is punishing him then.
Right.
And what does Jeff Goldblum know about pulling yourself up from your bootstraps? He's been a famous movie star since, like, what, the 70s?
I mean, it doesn't mean that he didn't have to work to do what he does. He
I don't
worked.
know his history,
Like,
but
we'll always have Jurassic Park. That's true. That's fine.
Yeah.
Well, and I will always have Independence Day, more importantly. And he's taught millions of people how to stutter as a form of acting. No. Go. No. Maybe that's what his kids. Maybe his kids will be vocal coaches just to push back on their dad.
They'll become speech pathologists.
I would love that. If one of his kids ended up being a speech pathologist who stopped people from stuttering, that would be the greatest FU ever.
Then they're definitely not getting an inheritance.
Yeah. I don't know. Just like, I feel like this is one of those things you could ask 10 people and you'll get, depending on the age of the person, their background, you'll get 10 different answers on what the right thing is to do here. But it's also a lot harder to judge it without more information on what any of this actually means. Like, I'm sure that he's not going to make these kids pay for their own college education.
We'll see.
We'll have to. I mean, that would be.
We'll hear from Charlie and River 10 years down the line.
Clarification there.
All right.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.